Jam Session is a podcast where two guys who grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth discuss sports, craft beer, life, and their experiences living in one of America's most vibrant cities. If you love sports, you're going to love this show. If you love craft beer or you're curious about it, you'll love this show. Great conversations with good friends is what Jam Session is all about.
Welcome. It's nice to have you here. I hope you enjoy it. I think you will.
You're listening to the Jam Session Podcast.
I was told that I could listen to the radio at a reasonable volume.
With Cowboys insider...
What's your name?
Jean-Jacques Taylor.
That's my name.
Radio personality and craft beer expert, Matt McLaren.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot. Comes from upbringing.
And now, the Jam Session Podcast. It is indeed Jam Session. Subscribe, rate, and review, and hang out with us for a while. Right here on the Jam Session Podcast. The moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, the radio, TV, and now podcast star, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor.
What up, dog?
I would be the non-sexy one, Matt McLaren. And this is Jam Session, the podcast version 58, asking simply that you prepare to be dazzled.
If not entertained.
Always entertained and dazzled. I will say this. I think I've said this before, but it's true. By the selection of superior quality, Carfax certified pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models from our friends there at Blue Star Motor Group. And this is one of those times I would imagine, and I know this is an unfortunate circumstance for some, but yes, and we're about to get into this. I had no choice. I had to get out and about. I saw multiple people sliding all over the roads that I would imagine in some cases are just ready to get a new vehicle. And that's where Blue Star Motor Group can help you. If you ran into a problem this week with the weather on the roads, or it's just time to upgrade perhaps. You know, Jacques talks about this all the time. This is one of the great things about Blue Star Motor Group. One, when you call Deb at 817-881-4066, you're calling the owner of the company. There's no middleman. You're calling the person who makes the choices, the end-all, be-all. And two, with the way Blue Star Motor Group does it, you're getting one of those high-quality cars that is slightly used, so you don't have to pay the premium price, but you get the premium quality of the vehicle.
That is always the way to go. It's the way I recommend. It's the way I suggest, and it's the thing that Deb can help you do.
So make it happen. Blue Star Motor Group. Don't forget, you can check them out on their website, their whole inventory, their pictures and all that at bluestarmotorgroup.com. Local, family owned, bluestarmotorgroup.com. Well, speaking of the weather, we have to start off there, and we've got a lot to get into. Carson Wentz has been traded, so we will have that conversation. Clarence Hill Jr. from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram is going to join us on this version of the podcast. We have a look at some mock drafts that are really setting up nicely for the Cowboys. But, man, we have to talk about the weather again, because as many of you will listen to this on Friday, February 19th, maybe some of you will be catching up in the days to come, and you'll be driving around with 65-degree weather going, wait, yeah, well, that's right, it was that bad. But, man, it hit me, and it hit me hard. And for those that follow on Twitter, you can find each of us at McMattRadio, at JJT_journalist. You know, I'd kind of at points just been expressing how I was feeling on Twitter to some degree. But our power, everybody knows, and we talked about this on the podcast that we did that dropped on Monday, February 15th, which was my birthday and was the beginning of all of this. That Monday morning, early in the morning, is when I'm doing air quotes, even though you can't see me, the rotating power outages were to begin. The first time power went out was around 1:30 a.m., very early Monday morning for us. And so we both sleep with, they're called sound machines that just blow like air and help to drown out noise and stuff. Problem is, when the power goes out, the sound machines turn off, and I wake up immediately because it's like a signal something's wrong, because my brain's like, sound machine's off. So I noticed that immediately. I wake up, I was like, oh no, the power's out. And I go, oh, this isn't good. I was like, well, hopefully it's okay. So we get on Twitter, and immediately we start seeing ERCOT and Encore telling you on Twitter, hey, there's going to be some rotating power outages because of the grid, because whatever the power emergency was went from like 0 to the max level in an hour.
Right.
And so I tell the lady friend, I'm like, well, it's rotating outages. It says here it'll only be out for like 30, 45 minutes, so we should be okay. Well, every time our power comes back on, there's two things about this house that are wild, and I cannot for the life of me figure them out.
What's that?
One of them, when the power comes back on, there is an old alarm system in this house that we do not use.
Uh-oh.
And I have no idea how it connects or anything. All I know is that when the power comes back on, the alarm goes off for like 2 to 3 seconds.
Oh, geez.
So it's not bad, but if you're trying to fall back asleep, you're going to wake up immediately every time the power comes back on.
Oh,
the other thing that I have to do, and I don't know why this is either, and if somebody has some theories out there, I'd love to know. I've gone through the owner's manual. I've looked up stuff online. I've Googled the crap out of this. The sprinkler system in this house, the control for it is in the garage, like most people's. For whatever reason, and it doesn't happen every time, sometimes when the power goes out, when it comes back on, like 5 minutes later, the sprinklers will go off.
Dude.
And so I had to get out of bed every time, go into the garage, and make sure that it was still saying off and that it hadn't randomly decided to go into a cycle.
Yeah, that's the last thing we needed was the sprinklers going off.
Right, exactly. So I'm sitting here going, man. And so this happened from 1:30 a.m. until about 4:30 a.m., the power would go off and on, I think 4 or 5 times. And then at 4:30, it was out for 3 hours where we had no power whatsoever. And then at 7:30, it came back on for an hour and a half. And then 9 a.m. Monday morning, it went off again. I was without power all day Monday, all day Tuesday. My power finally came back on Wednesday about noonish. So by my calculations, we were without power completely for 54 straight hours.
Wow. Now, how did you know it came back on?
Well, here's the thing. So on Monday, and again, this is what was so frustrating about this whole process, is that ERCOT, Encore, everybody that you can get information from is telling you these are rotating outages. So when it goes off for a couple of hours, you're like, okay, well, it's supposed to come back on. They're going to be rotating power. And I texted you, I texted my buddy Juan, my family. Nobody else I personally talked to lost power. And I'm sitting here going, what the hell is happening? So problem becomes, they put out those messages, hey, if you go longer than 2 hours without power, let us know. So, of course, I'm trying to let them know.
Right.
You can't call Encore. It's impossible to get anybody. They say, text the word out to this number. So I do that. No response whatsoever. Then the lady reads, well, they're saying if you download the app, you can report the outage on there. So I download the app and I zoom in on the outage map. They don't even show that our neighborhood is out. So I report the outage. And of course, there's no response through that. So at some point, when you get to about 5 to 8 hours of no power, and you are in a home built in 1960, we have very poor windows. The insulation in this home is horrible. And it's just one of those homes that really, if you were going to buy this house, because we rent it, you would say, you guys need to replace the windows and redo some of the doors and stuff and insulate this thing better before I invest in this home. Which I suppose I could tell my landlords, but they're not going to replace the windows. Now, the weather stripping and stuff on the doors, maybe that's something to look into. But point being, it got cold in here really, really fast. And to a point where I was wearing, at one point, long underwear, pajama pants with sweatpants over that, and then a long sleeve T-shirt with the hoodie, and I have like a heavier coat that I rarely wear that I was wearing over that with a beanie and my hood on inside my house.
Wow.
And so I had gloves on, my wool socks, and finally, as the sun starts to get close to going down, we had to make that decision.
This is all before the sun goes down.
Yeah. This is Monday. And so we're sitting there and we're debating it because the roads are bad. We know there's snow and ice on the roads. My brother lives in Carrollton, which with no traffic is probably 15 to 20 minutes from here.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know. I mean, so you make this decision. Do we stay here and freeze, or do we make the treacherous drive to Mark's house, hope that we don't get into a wreck on the way because he had never lost power? So we finally said, you know what, let's just go. It'll be okay. It'll be slow going, but we'll make it.
Right.
So we pack up and leave Monday evening. It took us about 50 minutes to get to his house because we're going, this is before they had plowed most of the roads and stuff on the highways. I mean, it was an interesting drive over there on Monday. And then I'm checking. So how I know the power was still out at the house is we have a Nest for our thermostat. And so the Nest only works if it's connected to the Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi works if we have power. And so I also have 2 smart plugs. And so I have a couple of different ways I can see, do we have power at the house where I can control a couple of things when I'm not at home?
Oh, okay.
And so the Nest kept telling me, connect to a power source. And I was like, well, we still don't have power. And so, man, at one point when I was monitoring it from afar, our house got down to mid-30s inside the home.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man. And so we're sitting there. So we stayed with Mark on Monday. We stayed with Mark on Tuesday. And then finally Wednesday, our power came back on. And it's one of those things, okay, let's give it a few hours. Is it actually going to stay on? And so we came home probably around 5 o'clock on Wednesday after I'd been monitoring. The power had been on for about 5 hours. And I thought, okay, surely it's staying on. And so far, as we record this on Thursday morning, it has been on since yesterday. And it's fortunate that we have heat and we have power and we're able to live fairly normally right now.
Dude, what a harrowing tale.
Man. And the other thing that, yeah, okay, so my lady was, she can hear us recording this. She goes, you forgot that we got so cold at one point inside that we just drove around our neighborhood in her car so that we could get heat.
Jeez.
We didn't want, because at that point we hadn't decided to go to Mark's and we didn't know how far we wanted to travel. So we're like, okay, we'll just go slow, stay close, and we can get the heater blowing in the car and warm up.
Wow.
I'm serious, man. It was the craziest thing.
No. Now, the other crazy thing is that I had none of that.
I know.
But it's weird because, and I was looking on Facebook, there are other people I know for a fact, because they said it on Facebook, in DeSoto, who lost power and, had similar situations to you. So I didn't lose anything all weekend. So that was a blessing. And our big thing is just, my dude's got running blood. I'm like, bro, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, you can't.
So you're not going, down the street around. There's nowhere you can go. So let's stop that. Any thoughts you have about that, delusions of grandeur, we'll stop that right now. And other than that, man, it was just hunker down. Although I did have my own travails, which is, I got all these cars, and I turned my garage into a gym. So I haven't been parking my cars in the garage, but it's not been a big deal. Well, when the temperature dips so low, now you got to start the process of making sure your cars start and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, of course, one of them didn't start. And so I'm like, geez. And then you got to go through the whole process of, okay, even when the weather clears up, it's so close to the garage because it got pulled in. I don't know how to get it out. So I got to figure that thing out. And how about this, Matt? Neighbor knocks on the door the other day. I guess this was 2 days ago. And he goes, hey, you left your window down in the driver's seat of your truck. Because I got an SUV that sits out front that my dude drives most of the time. Mm-hmm. So, my first thought is, dude, how can you leave the front? How can you leave the window down in a blizzard? What are we doing here? Because I'd asked him to go out and start it. And so the lovely Lorraine looks at me and says, well, you should go let the window up. I'm like, why I got to do it? I'm acting like a kid now, man. So I go out there and I see the window is all the way down. I'm hot as fish grease. Get in the car and the window won't go up, Matt.
Wow.
So I guess because I called him. I was like, what did you do? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, the window, it won't come up. He goes, what are you talking about? So I imagine when he got out of the truck from starting it up and he shut the door, that the window just fell and you couldn't get it up. And so then I had to drive it around the back and we had to put some garbage bags and blankets and stuff over the window.
That's pretty much the best you can do.
So it wouldn't be filled with snow. the first day, so I guess this was Tuesday, I went to inspect my car and crank it and make sure it started and all that. There's ice all inside my car. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why is there ice inside the car? And I'm like puzzled. I'm like, this is one of those mysteries that I don't know they'll be figured out. And then it dawned on me, man. It got so cold that I had a sparkling water in there and it exploded.
That sucks.
And then once it exploded, what happened? It froze.
Yeah.
All inside. So, but, I was kind of pissy until I realized, out of all the things that could go wrong, a car not getting started, the water exploding, and a window falling, in the big picture, is not that big a deal.
Yeah, and it's, one of the fortunate things so far with us, knock on wood a little bit, is we haven't had a problem with the water. I was so horrified of having a pipe problem or something,
dude,
that I left the water like not dripping, but like at a stream, which, it's like, okay, you have a choice. You're wasting water or you're trying to save like a serious problem. And it was funny because I left it. I read an article that some plumber wrote online that said in really bad temperatures like this, don't just drip them, stream them to where it looks like, about the size of an angel hair pasta coming out of your faucet. So wow. I was trying to get that perfectly. And what was wild was when we came back yesterday, it had gone from an angel hair to a drip. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
And so you could tell when I turned on the faucet, it kind of was like,
started coughing.
Yeah, a little bit. But the water's flowing on all our faucets. Our toilets work. Where I live in Irving has not, at least right now, been placed under the boil order that we've seen like in Fort Worth and Arlington and some other places. So I'm very fortunate that we have that. And I'm just happy that we can be home now because there are some people that still don't have power. But, dude, it will for always rack my brain and be a colossal mystery. How in the world, like Mark never lost power and you never lost power and Juan never lost power. My parents out in Rockwall never lost power. And yet so many hundreds of thousands of people in this area not only lost power, but like me, lost it for a hugely significant amount of time.
I really think a lot of it was luck of the draw, because, and I mean, I don't know that there's that much. I don't know that us, the common man, one of the rare times you'll ever hear me refer to myself as that, can figure out how the grid works. And like, I thought maybe we got spared because we're only a couple of miles, 3 or 4 miles from a major hospital. Mm-hmm. And they were saying that they weren't, they didn't want those people running off backup generators and stuff because that could be, real traumatic.
Sure.
So I think maybe that had something to do with it. But outside of that, I can't figure out how some people in DeSoto lost power. And some people like me didn't. So it was just wild and crazy, man. But, thus far, we have survived.
Yeah, I will say a positive spin on this because there was another couple that my brother Mark is very good friends with, and we've been around them several times. They had also lost power. So it was me and my lady and this other couple that were staying with Mark and his wife. And so there were 6 of us, and it was almost like we were on some sort of like grown-up trip somewhere because you'd look out and there's snow everywhere. We're all at Mark's house. Everybody had brought some beer over, so we're drinking, we're playing card games, we're hanging out, we're listening to music. So we found a good way to pass the time. Really enjoyed that. It was kind of nice to be able to spend some time with my brother and his wife that obviously we certainly hadn't planned on. And, Mark loves to cook, and he was making breakfast for everybody, and then he would make like lunch or whatever. And that part was kind of cool. And I will also say, I think it was Tuesday afternoon, a couple of guys that live over by him that work with him at the golf course came out, and we ended up playing for 2 hours.
Really?
Football in the snow.
I told you. It
was 2-on-2 with an all-time quarterback. And we were out there at one point I was like, oh my God, I'm pretty sure I have frostbite on my nose. It got really, really pink. But it was awesome. I mean, that part of it, it sucks that it has caused all the problems that it's caused. And I know there's going to be investigations and they're going to have to figure out how to make this never happen again. But in the moment, and I've said this all the time, and I thought this week was a great example of it. You cannot control what happens to you. all you can do is control how you react to it and try to react with the best energy and attitude you can. And it sucked that we couldn't be at home and we were worried our pipe's going to burst and all these things. But reality of it is I can't control any of that. But those 2 hours playing football in the snow with my brother, that was pretty awesome.
But did you win?
We did win, and the way we did it was it was me and Mark on one team against a couple of his buddies, and then, it was basically like all-time offense. So one guy would just play on offense. Sometimes he would run routes if we got too tired or whatever. I mean, I made a couple of sliding, diving catches in the snow, and we were just playing touch. Like, we weren't trying to play tackle or anything.
Well, of course not. You too old to be playing tackle.
But it got to the point, on that kind of snow, the offense has all the advantages because the offense knows what they're going to do, and half the time you'd make a cut and just slip and fall down. But, man, we went into overtime, and we said, okay, at about 10 yards from the end zone or whatever, first person to not score loses. And then we did that too many times. Like, okay, let's just move it all the way. Like, you get one play and you have to go the length of the little field we were playing on. And sure enough, we caught the touchdown, and then it was the other team's try to tie us. And that dude dropped the ball, so we win. And we were like, yes! It was pretty cool, man. We had a good time. That part was fun.
Nah, we tried to stay out of the snow, man. I mean, I went out and made a half-hearted attempt to build a snowman one day.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the right equipment, meaning I didn't have no gloves, man. And you can't go get any. And I was just like, dude, we got to stop.
Yeah. No, you can't do that with no gloves. Now, we're going to try to build a snowman later this afternoon. There's still plenty of snow. I don't know. I'm hoping that it's frozen a little bit more so that you can, because the last couple times I've messed with it, it's been just too powdery.
That's how it was the day we tried to do it. So that didn't help. Today might be a good day to do it.
Yeah, so we'll see. Again, but, you make the best of the situation. I'll tell you this, man. I like the cold weather, but it just sucks because in this area, we're just so unprepared for something like this. We don't have, I heard somebody the other day, we only have 38 snowplows in the entire North Texas area.
Makes sense, because you'll never use them.
I think it was Delkus that said this, where he said, that's basically what a suburb in Chicago has. And we've got 38 for the entire area. And so that's why when people are going, I can't believe, you can't drive on. I mean, dude, this is not, homes aren't built for this. Nobody has winter clothing for this type of weather. We're all just putting on hoodies and then another hoodie on top of a hoodie. I mean, there's just so much that you can do. I mean, unless you are a normal person who skis a lot and has skiing equipment, nobody has gear for this type of weather.
Nope.
So it becomes what it is, man. And it's just unfortunate that it shut everything down and so many people have gotten screwed, because there have been moments where you're outside and you're like, man, this is beautiful. And the snow is really cool, but it just causes way too many problems when it hits like this in an area like the one we live in.
Yeah. I mean, I get you, because I told you 1,000 times we live across the street from the park. And if you go down to the park, man, it looks like you're in Aspen. But for all the drama and all the problems, because I'm like you, man, our pipes did freeze probably about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
They didn't burst, but they froze, and they were frozen for like 3 days. Well, we were doing the whole boiling water thing because you didn't have any water. Yeah. And so now, man, we're probably, you talking about angel hair pasta, dude. I almost had that thing running like I was trying to fill up a bathtub.
Yeah, man.
Trying to make sure it didn't happen again.
Yeah, it's scary. You do not want to have to do it. And I've had several friends that have had those problems. And we've all seen the pictures. There's something like 90 apartment complexes in the city of Dallas alone that have had pipes burst. And we've seen all the horror pictures from all around the area. It's just been a nightmare scenario for many people.
Now, did you read the other story about that? I read one today that said, the busted pipes is bad. It's awful. It's horrible. It's all of that stuff. They go, but what happens is usually when your pipes burst, whoever cleans that stuff up, they come in 3 days, they get you fixed up, and then you can figure out how to get your house back.
Yeah.
They go, because there's been so many and because of the weather, if they can't get to it in 3 days, then that thing turns to mold and then your whole house is done.
Jeez.
And so they're like, the story I was reading today, and it's in the morning news, it was like there's a race of time because that water's just sitting there and it will turn to mold no matter what the temperature is. And so, you know, there may be some houses lost because they can't fix it fast enough before the mold sets in. And once the mold sets in, it's a wrap.
Man, that is horrible. That is horrible. Yeah, this has just been... That's why I'm saying, like, yeah, we lost power for 54 hours and had to leave our house, and it was freaking weird on the roads and all that. But I was like, man, I feel fortunate. Like, I feel like I'm one of the fortunate ones.
Oh, yeah. When you hear about people wrapped around looking for food. I mean,
Yeah.
my boy, Calvin Watkins, he sent me a screenshot from Target. Dude, there was nothing on the shelves.
Yeah, I mean, that's why like last Friday night when I went to the store and I tweeted out all those pictures of me in line.
Yeah.
Looking back, I was like, man, I am glad I went when I did. Because we're okay.
Absolutely.
We're good on that front. And I'll say this, man, the birds right now, I mean, you can tell they're trying to survive because we've talked about my bird feeders before. I have 4 bird feeders with 4 different types of seed in each one. Normally, I refill the feeders every probably 3.5, 4 days. Right. I am refilling them every single day.
Is that right?
They are, I mean, the birds cannot get enough food. Like, they're trying to survive, trying to keep warm. Birds from all, dude, we have so many more birds than we've ever had of different species who apparently have realized, oh, holy hell, we've got food here. And it is amazing how they are plowing through this bird seed.
Wow. I was going to say they're probably trying to eat so much to keep their body heat up.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of what it is. And I mean, it's just the wildest thing. I mean, I refilled it the other day before we left and I was like, oh my God. And then you look and you're like, holy crap. I just filled it yesterday and now it's already gone again. So I got to refill it again this afternoon. But hey, don't ever say I'm not a nice guy because I care about the birds. So we move forward, and time once again, as we do each and every week, to check in with our buddy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. You know his work well. He's been covering the Cowboys for years and years, and of course is brought to you by Soda Weight Loss, the greatness of Clarence E. Hill Jr. And Chill, I know I was following along with your tweets and your Facebook, and I got power back. We were talking about this earlier. I had power after about 54 hours of no power. We finally got our power back. I know you were in a similar situation. What's it been like for you the last couple of days?
Yeah, I was 48 hours without power, roughly 48 hours or so, give or take an hour or two. And, we're tough, but we didn't expect this. And you didn't prepare for this. And anybody that, we're getting ready for the winter storm did not prepare for the power to be out. We prepared, you can't go anywhere, you can't drive, you didn't prepare for not having power out. And at some point, most of the homes, they have fireplaces, but they're more decorative fireplaces than like the East Coast, where fireplaces are designed and built. They're big fireplaces to heat your house up. These fireplaces in most homes are not built to heat your house up, and when you don't have electricity. So, it was tough. I wouldn't stay with some friends and toughed it out. And my power came back on. And I was happy as everyone else.
Well, that leads to this. We're going to get into a more detailed conversation later. But what are your thoughts on Carson Wentz getting traded to the Colts for a couple of second-round picks, one of which can be a first-round pick if he plays 70% of the snaps and takes them to the playoffs?
Yeah, the Wentz wagon was on sale at Walmart. We thought it was going to be two. They wanted 2 first-round picks, and they went from Nordstrom to Walmart. I mean, it was on a discount rack. Who saw that happening? My question is, my big question is, why did if you're not going to keep Wentz, why did the Eagles hire the assistant quarterback coach, whatever it was, from the Colts, and wasn't to fix Wentz? I mean, if you're not going to have Wentz, this guy, Nick Cassera, is not better than Doug Peterson. To me, you go get Frank Reich's boy because he got, learn from Frank Reich, and he maybe can save Carson Wentz. Why did you go get that guy if you're not going to save Carson Wentz? None of that makes any sense to me. They did not upgrade the coaching staff with this guy if you're not going to keep Carson Wentz. The only reason you go get this guy is because maybe he can fix Carson Wentz.
Now, I'm gonna give you one more theory. They knew they had to get rid of Carson Wentz This guy is just a guy. He can't fix Carson Wentz. What's his name? Nick Caserio? No, that's the guy down in Houston. That's the guy down in Houston. This guy. I
don't know what his name is.
I should know his name. I forgot his name. But here's his deal. He is Philadelphia's. Are you ready for me? Chill. Take a drum roll now. He is Philadelphia's Dave Campo.
I was going to say, don't say.
Nope. We
Campo.
No, check this out, man.
On the staff, it's Nick Sirianni.
Nick Sirianni.
Let's get his name right.
No, we need somebody to man the ship while we got this $34 million cap hit coming this year. Ain't no real coach gonna do it. And so we're gonna bless you with the head coaching job. We're gonna pay you more money than you've ever thought you was gonna make in the NFL as a coach because you wasn't head coach material. And we need you to take this bullet for us. Much like Campo was the Cowboys' 3-time 5-11 coaches. They transitioned through all their salary cap woes, all their quarterbacks and all that stuff. And then once they thought they had it on the right path, okay, let's go get a real coach.
Well, they was also trying to build a stadium with their real coach. But, you know,
right.
There's so many layers to those moves. But, yeah, so I think, you know, it was a good gamble by the coach. They certainly got him at a good price. They knew that he wasn't the player he was, and they weren't going to be bamboozled by the Eagles into giving up a first-round pick. So it was a good gamble by the coach. The Eagles just, you know, had to take what they could get at that point because Carson Wentz wasn't going to the Bears. He wanted to go to the Colts, and so that's what they are. But the upshot of this is, and it always has to come back local, is that Dak Prescott is the last man standing. The last man standing, from the 2016 NFL draft. All the quarterbacks that were drafted, okay, he is the last man standing. First Jared Goff, then Carson Wentz, then Paxton Lynch, who the Cowboys tried to get, then Christian Hackenberg, then Jacoby Brissett, then Cody Kessler, then Connor Cook, who the Cowboys tried to get, you know, and then Dak Prescott was drafted. All those quarterbacks who were drafted ahead of Dak Prescott and every other quarterback from that draft is not with their original team or they're not in the league anymore. Dak Prescott is the last man standing from the 2016 NFL draft.
Yeah, which is when you look at the amount of quarterbacks that were taken that year, I mean, that is a stunning feat in itself, especially considering that both the Rams and the Eagles traded up in that draft class to get the number 1 and number 2 picks to take Goff and Wentz, and here they are 5 years later. And obviously it looks like the Rams situation is a little bit better with Stafford, but the Eagles, I mean, who knows? What is Jalen Hurts the future there? They at least get to justify taking a quarterback in the second round who doesn't have to play 6 snaps a game anymore in Philadelphia. But it is wild to me that ever since they won the Super Bowl, that franchise has just been like in a nosedive into the ground.
No, yes, and that's why it's hard. That's why you have to respect what the Patriots have done to stay relevant. You know, you certainly we all continue to have respect what the Cowboys did in the '90s, which is why it's crazy that they purposely blew it up. Which is why still, again, you go back to the Mavericks, why some people are still mad at Cuban for breaking up their championship team. You can't, you know, these things are not promised. You know, and when you have something special, you know, you got to let them run it out. Let it run its course. And you to break up that championship team on purpose, you know, because you were trying to outmaneuver the Cap because you think you were smarter than the average Bear. Well, look where they are now, you know, where they've been. But again, you go back to the Cowboys, and I always come back to the Cowboys. You know, this is why it's imperative for the Cowboys not to mess this thing up with Dak Prescott. Because they tried to mess it up. Let's be honest. They lucked into Dak Prescott. They tried to trade for Paxton Lynch. They got outfoxed, okay, by Denver, who made a better offer. But they didn't want Dak. They tried to trade with Paxton Lynch, okay? They messed up. Paxton Lynch ain't even in the league anymore, okay? They had all these other quarterbacks ahead of Dak. They tried to trade up for Connor Cook, who the Raiders got, who, again, is not in the league anymore. They tried to trade up for him. Matter of fact, they drafted a defensive end out of Oklahoma in front of Dak Prescott in the 4th round. He wasn't even their first 4th round pick.
And he ain't in the league no more.
He ain't in the league no more.
That's true, too, man.
Then they fell into Dak Prescott, and lo and behold, he started ever since. They can't. Again, sometimes God saved babies and fools. You know, they tried to mess it up. Now they trying to mess it up again.
Oh, they've messed it up. The only question is whether they can clean it up, because they done messed it up. However way you want to blame it, whoever you want to blame, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is there's an asset that they have that's coveted that they don't have secured. So ultimately, it's their responsibility to secure it. However they have to secure it. And if they don't, you know, man, they're going to spend all this time searching for a guy just like the guy that they let go.
Right. And what did Mama tell you about looking a gift horse in the mouth? You don't look at a gift horse in the mouth. You got to take that gift. Okay? Yeah. They got a gift with Dak Prescott. Take that gift.
Yeah,
make the most of that gift.
That's one thing that I've thought of recently too. Is you sit here and you know, to your point of the different quarterbacks that they tried to maneuver to get in the 2016 draft that they didn't. Apparently, they evaluated those guys to the point where they thought, oh, that's who we can win with. But you look at the last two quarterbacks, the real starting quarterbacks at the Cowboys, they lucked completely into Dak, and really they lucked into Romo because he was an undrafted free agent that they didn't think anything of, obviously, at the draft. And you just kind of wonder, where is the disconnect in their ability to evaluate quarterbacking talent coming out of college around the NFL when they're lucking into these guys and then they can't figure out how, especially in Dak's situation. I mean, to me, if I'm a Cowboys front office guy, I'd be horrified to have to go into the draft because I don't have a clue how to do it.
Listen, Jock and I were on the beat. I think Jock was on the beat when it was the great, you know, Larry Lacewell and Jerry was scouting Quincy Carter. They just knew they had their quarterback. They was gonna make something out of Quincy Carter.
Even though he's
they don't know how they got here.
I mean, it's just. I mean, this franchise cannot evaluate quarterbacking talent.
A fourth round pick that they took in the second round. No, but they, you know, it's a problem, and I don't know that they know how to solve it. Because the only way to solve it now is to just put more money than you can really even conceive giving one player and asking him to take it. And now, because he's so close to free agency, he ain't acquiescing on nothing. There's no acquiescence because, okay, fine, I'll just be a free agent next year. If I don't get what I want, okay, fine, I'll just be a free guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Nah, I'll just be a free agent next year. Years? Nah, I'll just be a free agent next year. Total average per year? Nah, I'll just be a free agent next year.
Right.
I mean,
and there's no way the Cowboys pull the escape chute. There's no way they say, fine, if you don't sign, we're going to pull the escape chute and let you become a free agent this year. There's no way they do that.
So they have messed this up beyond all belief. And the only question is whether they can salvage it. Whether they can, because this, you know, and I wrote about it on the Morning News website today, DallasCowboys.com. The only way they can salvage it is, and I've told this to Matt, is you just got to admit, you just got to deal with the fact you can't win this one. It's like when you get beat as a car dealer. You know, the guy shows up with his own money, his own financing, and knows all the stuff that you pad onto the price of the car. Take that off and take this off and you're not winning this one. So just go sell the car, take whatever the normal small profit is and keep it moving and go take advantage of the next customer. So that's what they got to do, man. Take the L on this one and then go, you know, sell somebody else on the dream. Now I got to ask you this, Chill.
Yes, sir.
This is a 3-0 fastball. So if you're sitting on it, you might hit it 500 feet. Why do you think Dak has to fight so hard for his money? There's no other quarterback who's had to fight for his money.
I think the real answer is Stephen Jones and somehow trying to manage this cap. Certainly, it looks funny, you know, if you want to take a racial component and look at all the other quarterbacks, especially in Dallas. Well, you go back to, you know, everybody else. Troy Aikman never had to fight for his money. You know, Romo never had to fight for his money. You know, and why is Dak having to fight for his money? They were paid the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL when it was time for them to get paid. And now we're trying to, you know, negotiate Dak and try to get the best deal for the team. And that's certainly not the case. But I think, you know, one aspect concerned about this cap and trying to get the right deal for this cap, that's where we are. But again, I've said this a long time ago. I've said this several times. you should not be trying to win a fight with your wife all the time. Dak is your wife. Okay? That's the one that he is the main cog in this thing. You lost with DeMarcus Lawrence. You lost with Zeke. Why are you trying to win with that? He's the one that you should have gotten done first. If you go back to how this thing got started, you let everybody jump in front of Dak, jump in front of your quarterback, jump in front of your wife, and now you're trying to make things right by trying to win this argument with your wife. That's just out of order.
Yeah, it's a bizarre situation that really hasn't made sense to me for the last 2 or 3 years. But while we have you, Chill, and with you and Jacques here, I think there's something that a lot of people would love to hear your thoughts on because, again, most of you, I think, realize, but Jacques and Chill are two of the longest tenured Cowboys writers out there that have been around the team, that have years and years of experience in this market. And there has been like this idea, this rumor, something being floated out from some of the people on the flagship that I don't know why people look at that, a guy who doesn't break Cowboys news. And it's something to do, like apparently the Cowboys know something about Dak's ankle. And really when this all comes out that they don't want to sign Dak and there's some sort of a problem going on. I'm sure that you guys are aware of this, but how do you respond to that when you see things like that are being put out there?
Well, my thing is, it's just like, my sister called me about this morning saying they were talking down here about, Dak Prescott is Houston trading their quarterback with Dak Prescott. Like that's not happening. That can't happen. That's made up. Or the reports now that somehow Russell Wilson wants to play in Dallas. I ignore it to a certain extent, and I'm not trying to get into what was reported on the flagship station or whatever else, but none of it makes any sense. The notion that somehow something wrong with the ankle, but they're going to tag him and they're going to pull the tag. But if there's really something wrong with the ankle and Dak knows it, because if the Cowboys know that Dak knows it, then as soon as they tag him, he signs a tag and gets $38 million.
Chill is being nice as a guest of the podcast.
Well, see, and that's why I wanted to throw this out here.
Because normally Chill would say, come on, man, I don't legitimize that bullshit by talking about
it. Right. We don't legitimize BS.
So,
I was saying that. I thought I said that. I don't deal with that nonsensical stuff.
Well, yeah, but you was being nice. On the podcast, you ain't always got to be nice. Sometimes you just lay it out there. And I'm gonna throw on there because number one, I don't pay attention to much that goes on over there anyway. But I always use this now, and I always tell fans this because I respect fans, and fans just know what they hear. They don't know how to differentiate a lot of time. I just go, does this person, whoever said it, because I don't know, do they have a history of breaking news? Like real Cowboys news. Because if they don't, you have to just ask yourself, well, why would this person know when Clarence Hill wouldn't know, when Todd Archer wouldn't know, when Peter King wouldn't know, when Adam Schefter wouldn't know, when Chris Mortensen wouldn't know? Why would this person know? Now, sometimes there's an outlier and something weird happens and the stars align right and somebody knows something. But a lot of times, man, people just bumping their gums looking for attention. And a lot of this came up because, who is that? Somebody had a report last week that Dak had a second surgery.
Right, yeah.
And so, now, that just leads to a new bunch of stories.
Which I didn't think it was that strange because anybody who's had surgery on things of that nature, like when I had my knee surgery, for instance, the doctor even told me, he's like, look, at some point you're probably going to have to come back in so we can clean this up. That's really up to you. I don't know what the situation is with Dak's ankle, but, even if there's a third surgery, I don't think it's bizarre that in an injury of that nature, you might have to have a couple of surgeries once it starts to heal to go in and clean out some scar tissue and some other things.
No, the problem is the Cowboys. It's the lack of information. It's the silence. And so that is, breeds all of this. And I think it certainly is part of the COVID shutdown. Generally in a normal year, we would have talked to Steven at the Senior Bowl,
right.
and we would have got some clarity on where they were at the Senior Bowl, in normal times. It's like next week is the time of the combine, and we usually have a sit down with the coach and Jerry and Steven in separate interviews at the Combine where we can at least get a handle on the record about where they are and what's going on. Well, that's not available to us. So it's a quiet time. And, you know, what they say, you know, idle time is the devil's playhouse. And people just started making up stuff. Just all this, you know, crazy stuff that's coming out there. And again, I blame the Cowboys because, again, I asked Rich, you know, can we talk to Dak before the end of the season? You know, can we get an update on what's going on? You know, the Cowboys were being secretive about their second surgery, which they didn't have to be because they didn't want the speculation to occur. But it came out anyway. And so now you got a speculation occurring about what is a normal cleanup surgery that's not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's prompted, as you guys mentioned, I mean, there's all sorts of things floating around out there, and that is one of the problems. Who knows? Hopefully at some point this will return to normal to some degree where we can start getting real information again and people can actually ask those questions and have those conversations that you guys have been having for years that in the current times just haven't been able to take place.
Yeah, you know, and it's not coincidental that his girlfriend, fiance, whatever else, also posted a picture of Dak standing on the beach this weekend. I don't know if you saw that without a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dak don't do nothing accidental, man. Everything he does is very intentional, very intentional.
You know, so.
All right. Well, Clarence, we appreciate it as always, man. Glad you finally got your power back on. It's nice when you don't have it for a couple of days. You really kind of understand how much power and electricity means to you.
Yes, I just need to go to Cancun. Let's go to Cancun. 1, 2, 3, Cancun. Let's all meet Cancun.
Sounds like a plan. All right, man. We appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Later.
And as always, Clarence Hill Jr. of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram joins us every week, brought to you by Soda Weight Loss, something that Jacques has that personal experience with.
Now check this out, Matt. I know it's been cold and a lot of folks, including your boy, have not been able to get to the gym, and that's okay. Here's why. Yeah, you got to work out to lose weight, but nutrition, you can't outwork a bad diet, man. And soda is what helps get your diet right. Because, you know, for like a lot of folks, I set goals every single solitary year. But it wasn't until soda helped me with the tools to reach the goals that I finally started having success, man. That was the year I found out about soda. And soda is the reason why I, your boy, have dropped 50 pounds over the last 3 years. I've kept it off. And I got to tell you, Matt, even in these oversized pajamas I'm wearing, I do look sexy. Soda, they help you keep the weight off for life. Check them out at Soda Online, where you can read more than 4,000 Soda client Google reviews and see why the Dallas Cowboys have made Soda its chosen weight loss program for their organization and fans. SOTAweightloss.com. Soda, 7 DFW locations, or check them out at Soda at Home. Soda and those Cowboys are, say it with me now, state of the art.
So we move forth here on this version, and happy to tell you, as always, about Freeway Tire Shop, man. I know a lot of people, you may need some general mechanic work after the week that your car has been through. Perhaps you're looking for new tires. They've got you covered. And, you know, this is always, I say this all the time, it doesn't matter whether it rains or snows or whatever. We still need state inspections. We still need oil changes. All these things, car maintenance that you have to have. And Freeway Tire Shop can get you taken care of. I actually just had somebody the other day, I was trying to find it on Twitter, that sent me a thing. Make sure you give JR a shout out from me on your podcast for the tires that he gave me. I was like, all right. I can't remember who it was. Can't find him. But he got you covered. He takes care of the jam session audience. And you talk about elite level customer service, super competitive pricing. Jam session listeners do get a discount. We all need help with our cars at some point. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of car you have, what condition it is in. At some point, you have to have these maintenance items done for you.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned the best thing, man. It's the customer service, man. It doesn't matter whether it's me or whether it's Matt or whether it's somebody else. You go over there, you get treated like they actually care about you, because they want to see you back. This is not a hit and run. They want you coming back time and time again, and they want you telling people that they deliver on what they say they deliver.
So make it happen. You can schedule an appointment. You can request a quote and find them online at freewaytireshop.com. But we started recording this podcast again. We're recording on Thursday, February 18th. And right before we started recording, all of a sudden, Twitter is ablaze because the Eagles found a trade partner for Carson Wentz. They are sending him to be reunited with Frank Reich in Indianapolis. So the Colts have what they hope is their quarterback of the future in Indianapolis with Carson Wentz. And the Colts are sending to Philadelphia a third-round draft pick and a conditional second-round pick, which really should be a first-round pick if Carson Wentz is who the Colts are hoping he will be, because all he has to do is play either 75% of the snaps or 70% of the snaps with the team making the playoffs, and that second-round pick then becomes a first-rounder.
Yeah, and you would think that that's something that he can do, but I don't know until he does it, man.
That's true. That's a valid point.
But and here's why. I mean, I think he has the physical gifts to be able to do that. But what's the thing you've heard about Carson Wentz, man? Over the last year and a half or 2 years, one, he's not a likable guy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that means he's like a 7-letter cuss word or he's just kind of like, you just don't want to hang with him, like, you know what I mean? Because there's a difference. Or maybe the better question is what makes him kind of an unlikable guy. 2, he's got a lot of arrogance to him, man. A lot of hubris. If you believe what people write about him, and I do, and here's why. Once people are gone, the real story always comes out, because then you don't have to worry about reprisals. And so, will he take the hard coaching that Frank Reich and the Colts staff will give him? And then can he get his confidence back? Because if you think about it, man, Philadelphia is a hard place to play.
Sure.
Because Philadelphia, and I'm being real here, I'm not just taking shots like Matt would do. It's a mean-spirited city. It's a city, it's just it's not a friendly place. I mean, this whole stuff about brotherly love is BS.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Philadelphia.
Of course, they wake up every morning, they're like, oh my God, we live in Philadelphia. This sucks. And they're just pissed off all the time.
Yeah, so it's not an easy place to play. Because the media is like that. I mean, the whole vibe of the city is kind of like that. Blue collar, complaining, moaning, groaning all the time kind of place. And he didn't deal well with competition. So, so when you bring him into the Colts, yeah, he gets a fresh start and a clean slate. But this is a team that thinks it can win. And so they're bringing you in to help us win. And so there's a certain amount of pressure that goes with that. And how he handles it, and how does he move within the walls of the locker room? Can he make himself a more likable person? Everybody can't. Now, and here's what I mean, man. Everybody can't make themselves more likable. Back in the early days of ESPN, there was a guy over there, and when he left, man, the stories you heard about him and how unlikable he was used to host a show. I mean, it was just terrible because he was an unlikable guy. And no matter what he did to try to ingratiate himself to people, he was always unlikable at the end of the day. Now, I don't know if Carson Wentz is that guy, but if he is, you'll hear the same things coming out of the Colts after, about 9 or 10 months, because, there will be a honeymoon period where everybody gives you the benefit of the doubt and you try to do right. But if it's in you, man, to be a 7-letter cuss word, it's coming out now.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, the hard coaching with Frank Reich in that he seemed to respond to it when Reich was in Philadelphia, as obviously that was when he had his best offensive season. That was like the MVP year that some people look at. It is interesting because last year he only played 12 games. Now, the Eagles did pull the plug on him. He's only played 11 games one other season. So it's going to be interesting to see physically, is his body going to be able to hold up? Because say what you will, man, I'm telling you, ever since he had that injury and had to miss a chunk of time and Nick Foles took the team to the Super Bowl and won it, we've seen a different quarterback. The guy is just a different quarterback. Now, obviously, last year he was god-awful, but even the year before that, it wasn't like he was elite. He wasn't a top 10 quarterback the year before that. So maybe Wright can get him, and he gets out of Philadelphia, and he gets out of the pressure. Who knows? And we talked about this before with Wentz. There are guys on the Colts that know guys on the Eagles who are going to text and be like, hey, man, what's the deal with this?
Yep, they've already done it, bro.
Fair or unfairly, he's going to be walking into another locker room where there are going to be guys that are already looking at him with the side eye because they heard from their dudes in Philadelphia that, hey, man, this is my experience with them. Or, to your point, maybe they already heard because as soon as this went down, some guy from Philadelphia said, oh, man, I got to hit my guy up in Indy. He's like, dude, Carson's a dick.
Yeah, dude, as soon as the rumors came out, I mean, we've been talking about him going to the Colts or the Bears forever. So as soon as that conversation started after the Super Bowl or whenever it became clear they're going to trade him, those texts got exchanged then. So everybody knows what the deal is. Now it's a matter of, again, can you go reinvent yourself? See, here's the thing. Whenever you go through a situation like Carson Wentz has been through, one of two things will happen. Seriously. Either he has hit rock bottom as an athlete, and so he's ready now to accept whatever it takes to get back to being an elite level quarterback. Mm-hmm. That's one path. Or in his mind, regardless of what he says publicly, but his mind and his actions when he gets to the Colts will be like, none of that stuff in Philly was my fault.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't me. It was this guy's fault, and it was that fault, and it was this situation. It wasn't really me, man. Because you know me, Frank.
Right.
So depending on which approach he takes, and only time will tell. To me, that's what will determine the amount of success he has. I mean, I think he's talented enough athletically to have a good NFL career and be a good player. And they're set up to win, man. They got a really nice defense. They got a terrific offensive line. They got a couple of good running backs. Jonathan Taylor had a nice rookie year. They got a couple good receivers. They got what you need to win, except the quarterback.
Yeah, and we shall see how this all plays out. Obviously, is Wentz fixable? I mean, he went from what many people believed was going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL to, I mean, look, this is not, yes, I hate Philadelphia more than any other sports franchise out there, but I think everybody can look at the numbers. Carson Wentz was probably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL last year. And the drop-off, we've talked about it, it's been reported many times, was historic. Never has there been a drop-off from the level that he was at to the level where he's at now. So we'll see. I mean, that's just true. That's reality. That's fact. And so now we'll see if Reich and the Colts in that situation can get Carson Wentz back to what we saw at some point a couple of seasons ago. Who knows? The Eagles, I ripped the Eagles nonstop for the Jalen Hurts pick because I thought it was colossal shit. I thought it was a horrible selection. We've talked about this many times. That was the first sign that they didn't truly believe in Wentz, that they thought something might be wrong here or might not work long term. Yep. You could never, ever, ever convince me that they spent a second-round pick on a dude to be Taysom Hill. Because, again, he plays on average, some games more, on average, 6 snaps a game. You could never convince me the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts because they thought for 4 years he would play 6 snaps a game. You would never do that. No team ever on any position would do that for a second-round pick. It's too valuable. And so now we see why they took Hurts, because they weren't sure about Wentz. And when they were allowing Wentz to leave and figured out a plan, now they have a guy that they believe, or at least they're going to try and find out, if he can step in and be what they thought Wentz was supposed to be. So now that pick, in hindsight, actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. Their problem is we don't know how good Jalen Hurts can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're betting on that. And let me tell you what's going to happen, man. Nick Sirianno, their head coach, they hired that dude, man, for 2 reasons. One is you got to have somebody absorb this $34 million salary cap hit because you're not going to be any good this year because you can't field a real team. I mean, that's damn near 20% of your cap right there for players, for a guy no longer on your roster.
Yeah, that's a lot.
All right. So that's number one. And number two, if this quarterback thing goes south with Jalen Hurts and he's not the guy, and he probably gets 2 years to prove that, this year and then half of next year, which means 3 years from now, they'll need a quarterback. Mm-hmm. They'll fire him before then.
Yep.
And the new guy will come in with a top 5 pick and a chance to pick his quarterback. But he will have been very well compensated for his time.
This is a fascinating offseason for the Eagles. And we've talked about this with the quarterbacks and everybody and all the moving pieces. But it is going to be very interesting because of how you just laid that out, because you're right. You've got a dude who's not even on your team who's going to take up 19, 20% of the cap this year.
Yeah.
And so with that, you have to look at that. You're kind of going to throw this year away. And so I do wonder this, because as they go into the draft, they have the 6th overall pick. Now, okay, great. You could probably end up with maybe Jamar Chase, maybe a Jalen Waddle, whoever it is, Devontae Smith, whoever it is, as a weapon for maybe they're trying to replace Zach Ertz and they've got Goddard and they want Kyle Pitts, whatever it is, a weapon. But if you realistically know you're not going to be competitive this year, is this a pick that the Eagles look to trade down and pick up extra draft capital and drafts in years to come?
It could be, because you could probably, depending on how far you dip down, if you want to add a receiver, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But we all know that receivers are like 2 guards in the NBA. And so if you wanted to, you could go, you trade down, and there's Jamar Chase, there's Devontae Smith, and there's Waddle. You can still get one of those guys probably at 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, and I'll be really curious and we'll get into this at some point in the next couple of weeks as we start looking more and more at the draft, but the Panthers looks like they might want to trade up. The Bears might want to trade up, both trying to get one of these quarterbacks, the 5 quarterbacks that many expect not only to go in the first round, but to go in the top half of the first round. So we'll see how this all plays out, but it's really interesting. And before we get into our conversation about how this is all played out, it's also fascinating because, to me, when you look at this from the Cowboys' perspective, I look at it now, the Eagles are not going to be a competitive team next year. The Giants, who knows? Daniel Jones, I still don't think is the answer. They've got all kinds of different holes they need to fill. Washington still doesn't have a quarterback that they believe in. Now, that defense is legit, and maybe because of where the division is, you can win it again based on that defense. But that's why if I'm Dallas, man, and maybe you're not a Super Bowl contender, but I still look at this division and I say, if we can get Dak in here, we're the only team that has a solid quarterback that we believe in, that we think we can win with right now.
It's one more reason why they should be getting him in, man.
You would think.
I mean, one more reason why they should be getting it done, pressed to get it done. Because, again, man, the other part of this is you can make a contract work however you need it to work for a year or two. Really, because of the way you structure it.
Right.
The TV contracts are expiring after 2022, which means they'll probably get done after 2021, and there'll be extensions. So, the cap is going to take a huge jump forward in a couple of years. And as we always say, man, what looks like a cap strap contract now, 4 years from now, seem like chicken feed. And it doesn't matter who we're talking about. I mean, does Aaron Rodgers' $33 million really look all that bad right now?
No, not at all.
I mean, really?
Not at all.
No, it doesn't. Kirk Cousins got 32. That doesn't look that bad. Ryan Tannehill got like 29. That looks like a bargain. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And so, man, I'm actually a little bit disappointed that the Cowboys haven't figured out a way to get it done. But it's because they're being stubborn. It's because they're used to winning every single negotiation in their mind, whether they win it or not. And they're not willing to take an L on this. And so they're being stubborn. And that stubbornness, man, pride comes before the fall, baby.
It does. Now, the other angle of this with Wentz leaving Philadelphia is the fascinating look at the 2016 NFL draft. And you heard us talking with Clarence Hill Jr. of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram earlier, and we brought this up briefly with Chill, but it's true. There were 15 quarterbacks drafted in the 2016 NFL draft. Dak Prescott, assuming that the Cowboys are going to tag him and he is going to remain a Cowboy, Dak Prescott would be the only quarterback of those 15 that is with the team that drafted him 5 years ago.
How wild is that?
It's amazing. It is. And when you look at what it cost both the Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles in draft capital to jump up to get the number 1 and number 2 picks, respectively, to take Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, it's absolutely amazing to me. And again, it goes to the fascination that all franchises have and the obsession with finding the franchise guy. and we're about to find out if Philadelphia, now they did get a Super Bowl. So regardless of whether it was Wentz or whatever, they did win a Super Bowl while he was there.
Oh, yeah.
But reality of it is, you look at this now, and both these teams have just given up all kinds of draft capital, and it looks
They're on
like
the journey again, bro.
Yeah, it looks like the Rams will be okay because of Stafford. But if Hurts isn't the answer in Philadelphia, the Eagles are going to be a bottom feeder in the NFC East for the next few years.
Yeah. I always say it. You're on that quarterback journey. And maybe you're the Cowboys, you go Romo to Dak, or you're the Packers, you go, Favre to Rodgers, or you're the Colts, and you take a year off before you get, Peyton, before you get Andrew Luck. And they only had that. I'm not even sure they took a year. Maybe they took a year, and then they got Phillip Rivers. Mm-hmm. And now they're trying to piece it together with Wentz.
Right.
But listen to what they're doing. Once Luck left, okay, let's go get Phillip Rivers. He's been in the league 15 years. Now let's go trade for Wentz. Why? They're trying to avoid that real quarterback journey where you start drafting dudes, investing 3 or 4 years. He's not quite what we thought. Okay, let's draft McLaren. He gets 4 years. It's not quite what we thought. Let's draft Taylor. He gets 3 years. It's not what we thought. Let's draft Hill. He gets 4 years. And before you know it, you're 17, 18 years down the road. And if you think I'm exaggerating, look at the Browns.
Yeah.
Look at the Jets. Look at the Bills. Look at the Dolphins. Look at the Washington. Dude, I mean, if we sat there and really looked at, I had all teams in front of me, the list is long. Look at the Saints before Drew Brees. Who was there after Archie Manning?
No one.
Dude, Now, Matt Stafford's like the savior in Detroit. He ain't never won nothing. But you can't name the good quarterback before Matt Stafford. You're not guaranteed to find that guy. Mm-hmm. You can be on that journey, Matt, for a lifetime.
You can. And the 2016 draft is a great example of that, especially when you look at it at the top two teams and what they gave up to get where they drafted those quarterbacks. And the Rams got to a Super Bowl and lost, but still didn't believe Goff was worth it. And the Eagles, of course, won the Super Bowl, even though it was Nick Foles who really took them the last chunk of that season, but just looked at Wentz and either he didn't work there mentally or the drop-off and decline in play, what have you. Paxton Lynch, who was a complete and total bust. Christian Hackenberg, who never did jack shit. Jacoby Brissett, who is going to be a career backup journeyman. Cody Kessler, who never did anything. Connor Cook, who I think played like one game in the NFL. And then Dak Prescott. And you look at the names behind him, Cardell Jones, Kevin Hogan, Nate Sudfeld, Jake Rudock, Brandon Allen, Jeff Driscoll, Brandon Doughty. It's a bunch of nothingness names of guys who, oh, yeah, I remember that dude. Well, probably because you watched college football, which is where you remember them from.
Right.
And Dak is such a shining, at this point, 5 years in, Dak is hands down the best quarterback out of that class.
It's not even a conversation, man. He's the guy and see, the thing about Dak is he's continuing to improve. I mean, one of the best things you can say about Dak, really, is that he had that awful stretch between, the end of year 2
right,
and the time that they acquired Amari Cooper. It's like 13 games or something like that. At that awful stretch, man. But then once they gave him Amari Cooper, he figured out some things about his game, and then he started improving. And so that's what you always want. Can you make that adjustment? He's made it. His off-the-field stuff is off the charts.
Yep.
And so, dude, he's what you want in a quarterback, and they got lucky to get him, and now they'll be lucky to keep him.
They will be very lucky indeed, but a fascinating quarterback carousel this year with Goff and Wentz already moving on, and we'll see what else happens with these other quarterbacks, but man, that 2016 NFL quarterback class, Dak Prescott sitting from the 4th round, and just incredible to see the movement and the misses that came before him.
Absolutely, man.
So we'll move on here and tell you about a couple of our fantastic sponsors. One of those, of course, is Blue Dragon Fine Art. Been telling you about Blue Dragon for a while now. It's a really interesting concept. Logan's such a good dude. We were able to meet him a few weeks ago when we did a live show. and Logan came out and we talked with him, and such a fascinating concept to support local. Has an idea, he's a local dude, to start a local art gallery for local artists who may not have an opportunity to show their work elsewhere. And it's called Blue Dragon Fine Art. You can find it online, bluedragonfineart.com. You can check out the Instagram and Facebook pages for it. And it gives you an opportunity that no matter what your budget is, maybe you don't have a lot, but you would kind of like to add some art pieces, or maybe you are an art connoisseur and just wants to spend some money on local artists. Whatever the case may be, you will find something you can add to your home or office at bluedragonfineart.com.
Now, I think that's actually the beauty of Blue Dragon. And see, this is normally when I tell everybody, stop what you're doing. Seriously. Because you can listen to the podcast while you're on your phone. And go to Blue Dragon Fine Art and spend like a couple minutes just tooling around the website, man. Because you'll find something that captures your attention and it'll make you take a little deeper look. Now, I'm an art guy. Because I like color. I like more abstract than other stuff. But tool around, and I promise you'll find something that intrigues you. And then you can decide if you want to make that extra move or not.
Indeed. Check them out. Blue Dragon Fine Art, another fantastic locally owned local company, which we love. And that, of course, leads us into our next conversation, which will really start with, gosh, I guess it was about a week ago when I walked into Kroger. And one of the first things I said, I walked all the way to the back. I talked to the meat dude. He's like, what can I get for you? And I said, those wings right there in the window, wrap me up 3 pounds of the mango habanero wings. And he did. And I love these wings. I've grilled them. I've only ever grilled them, but I love them. The mango habanero is my favorite. The sweetness, just a little bit of the habanero. It's not spicy, I don't think, at all personally. But there's no breading on these, so you really get the flavor of what the wing's supposed to be. If you cook them right, they're just nicely done, full of meat, man. And so I actually got another order of those last week. The wings at Kroger, again, available at most North Texas Kroger locations, mango habanero, buffalo blue cheese. If you haven't had them yet, and you've been hearing us talking about them for months, go get them.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, because Jacques has done his in the air fryer before, and I've seen some others of you that have sent in pictures, which I love seeing. Feel free to tweet us the pictures of the wings you make and how you're doing them when you get your wings from Kroger. Just make sure, again, you got to go to wherever they cut up the fresh meat and stuff, because these are fresh wings. They're not frozen or anything like that. And so for my birthday, my mom got me an air fryer.
Bless her heart.
It is a 5-quart air fryer. That is one of the most popular ones out there, I think. I was looking up some information on it. And I got to tell you, man, I wasn't sure about the air fryer. Didn't exactly know how it was supposed to work.
Dude, it's a game changer.
Dude, when you first ever start using it.
It's a game changer.
And so last night, we had these 3 pounds of mango habanero wings. I was like, okay, we're air frying them. Let's check it out and see if we can do this. And so as the somewhat master air fryer that you seem to be, I have to tell you, man, I after my first run through, a couple of things I noticed. It felt like the wings were juicier for whatever reason in the air fryer, but then I don't think I completely did it right because it felt a little bit more rubbery than they do when they're on the grill.
Yeah, I think we exchanged some text about this, but it's easier to explain on the phone than it is text messages.
Yeah.
Because let me just tell y'all, Matt ain't answering the phone unless you send him a text that says, I'm about to die. Answer the phone. then if you call, he'll answer the phone.
A lot of truth to that.
But, what I have discovered on some things with the air fryer is it takes you got to learn. It's like anything. Like you got to learn your car, like how far you can go on E before you need to go get some gas.
Yeah.
The air fryer is like the 400 degrees on my air fryer is probably not the same as the 400 degrees on Matt's, which is probably not the same as the 400 degrees on you guys' air fryer. The difference is, and maybe it means you got to cook it for 1 more minute or a minute and a half or something like that. But my point is it takes you a couple of runs sometimes to figure out how long your air fryer needs to do certain things. And the other thing that you were talking about, which you probably didn't take into consideration until later, is if you put too many in there, you have to cook it longer because the heat doesn't spread out as much as, like with anything.
Apparently, yeah.
Like if you had 16 of them in there, maybe you only needed like 12 for the air to really circulate. I'm trying to think with mine. I can't remember how big mine is, but the wings from Kroger are a little bit smaller, so I can fit more in there. I usually have about 12 or so in there. I'm maybe 14. But I typically cook them for about 22 minutes, something like that. We've had great success with them. And I told you too late, and knowing you probably don't have any baking powder at the house.
Correct.
Next time you're at the store, I'll send you a text because you won't answer the phone. And I'll tell you to get some baking powder. Baking powder in the air fryer is a game changer. And y'all know what I'm about to say. I discovered this on TikTok. All the recipes were having baking soda in them. And I couldn't figure out why. Dude. Because what happened, Matt, is I was cooking some regular chicken. And my dude was like, it's so dry whenever you cook it on the air fryer. I don't like it. I was like, well, damn. It was dry because I was cooking it longer. Why? Mm-hmm. Trying to get it crunchier and crispier. All that does is dry it out. The baking soda provides no flavor, so you don't taste anything. But man, it gives it a crispy, crunchy coat to it that's spectacular. So that's why I said when you put it on your wings, like we did some just plain the other day. And with the baking soda on there, man, added that crunch to it. Hey, man, my dude destroyed those.
Yeah, so is that like you roll the wing in the baking powder, or do you just kind of sprinkle it on there, or what?
Yeah, you know what else I didn't tell you to do? See, all this is coming back to me now.
Yeah.
Which is what I do. I put them, I get the wings and I put them in a bowl. And then I add like a tablespoon of baking powder, depending on how many are in there, maybe a little bit more if there's more wings in there. Because you don't want it covered. You just want it sprinkled on there, almost like confectionery sugar. And then I put a little olive oil on there. Just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. Coat it with a little bit of olive oil, then swirl all that around in a bowl and mix it up. Then you put it in the air fryer, and the olive oil heats up the meat a little bit. Mm-hmm. This is my understanding anyway. And so, but it's just a little bit. The internal temperatures and stuff, so it gets a little more done, and then the baking soda adds that crisp. And when you do it like that, man, and you figure out the exact right time, they'll be perfect. So it may take you another couple times. Or as I told you, I'll bring you some over and do them, and we'll see if you like them. And then we'll know for sure whether you like them or whether you just don't like the way you made them.
Yeah, see, and I think it's interesting, too, because, we were trying to figure out exactly how long to put them in there. And I'd read a couple of things that said if you have them stacked on top of each other, they won't cook as well.
Right. Should never do that.
So I tried, and see, that's what happened is because there were so many wings in there that I was opening it up like every 5 minutes and trying to turn the wings over because I started to notice that like one side was getting cooked more than the other side. And so I was rotating them more and tried to do it like that, but it was still, and see, to your point, we thought, okay, because some of them we ate after 20 minutes and they just seemed, they were juicy, but the outside of them seemed kind of rubbery. I was like, well, let's just throw them in there for 5 minutes longer and see what happens. And then they weren't as juicy, but the outside was a little bit more like what you would expect.
See, baking soda eliminates all of that.
Yeah, so that was a weird thing. But then I want to try some things like okra and Brussels sprouts and, trying to do like homemade fries and stuff like that.
And so y'all probably thought I was joking. We're going to start, especially once the weather gets back to normal, we're going to have a segment called Frying with the Frenchman. And I'm going to let Matt come in, and we're going to experiment with the air fryer because I've been cooking all kind of stuff while we've been home the last few days. And I had been cooking sweet potatoes and turn them into fries and stuff. And then, man, I went to Costco, and they had a bag of, yes, it's Costco, organic sweet potatoes. Mm-hmm. They were already cut. Dude, I put those in a bowl.
Yeah.
Swirl just a little bit of olive oil on them. Just a little bit of baking soda to give those that crunch too. Put some rosemary on it and swirled them around. My goodness. The lovely Lorraine tried to eat them every day for 3 days.
Man, so you do all that where you do a little bit of olive oil and the rosemary and stuff before you put it in the air fryer.
Swirl it around in there. and coat it, and then I cook it with it in there. It's just like anything else. Anything else you cook, you don't spice it after you finish it.
Okay.
You spice it before you cook
Well,
it.
because we had read like you're not supposed to use oil or anything in it or whatever. So I was trying to figure out like exactly the best way to go about doing everything. But again, I'd never used an air fryer in my life. So
Right. And that's why I said I put just a little bit on there.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I got one of those bottles where you squirt it out. Looks like a ketchup bottle or something.
Oh, yeah.
Where you just, the clear kind, and you just squirt a little bit on there just to coat it just a little bit. And then put the seasoning in there, swirl it around in a bowl so it touches everything. And then put that. Actually, typically I use some tongs to put it in there. Then I can spread it around.
Yeah.
And dude, we've tried a bunch of stuff from Brussels sprouts to fries to salmon. I finally figured out how to cook a steak in there. Because see, this is what I'm talking about. The first time I did the steak, it didn't come out right because they said 10 minutes, and on 10 minutes, mine wasn't the way I liked it. And so we needed like 12 minutes. And so, just experimenting with it back and forth. Oh, I cooked scallops in there. I tried that. So,
yeah, I will say I found, and I don't do Pinterest at all. Like I know what it is, but I've never really done anything with it. But I did find this Pinterest page that has all these recipes that people have posted specifically designed for the exact model of air fryer that I have.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, so I was like,
now
okay.
the timing ought to be
Yep.
right. And then it's just a little experimentation, man. But it's a game changer because, it's you don't have to watch it while you're doing it. You can leave and do some other stuff, and you just look up and it's done. I'm doing some shrimp for lunch for my dude. With
Fantastic.
We're doing. Matter of fact, I told him, I said I'll do you some shrimp and some roasted broccoli for lunch, and that's what we're doing. We put some bacon in there the other day.
All right.
We've had just about everything in that thing, man, over the last week or so.
So how many strips of bacon can you fit in the thing?
Only about 5 or 6. But
That's what I figured. That's got to be pretty quick, right?
That takes about 10 minutes.
Man, really? Huh.
Yeah, but it turns out perfect. And, my whole reason behind the air fryer, bro, I'm forever trying to convince my family, that they can eat pretty damn good and have it taste pretty damn good.
Yeah.
At the house. Like going out to eat should be like, hey, we haven't been out in a while. Let's go out and have a really good meal somewhere. Enjoy it. It shouldn't be like, I don't feel like cooking or, I just have a taste for this. I mean, my big accomplishment this week, I put it on Facebook, but I didn't put it out there on Twitter for the masses.
Right.
My big accomplishment this week, Matt, was I have perfected. Now, I've been trying to do I feel like a guy. It's true. I've probably been trying to do this for a decade. I have perfected the coffee frappuccino.
Okay.
But see, I enjoy coffee frappuccinos from Starbucks with no whip on it, no whipped cream, because and I've been drinking coffee protein shakes, but they taste like coffee, but it's there's a lot of foam in it because the ice doesn't melt. You can't just quite get it right, dude. I had one yesterday that I proclaimed to be within 95% of a Starbucks frappuccino, and it was. I went crazy. I was like, I've been trying to get this recipe right for 10 years, and I finally done it, and I figured out what it was. It's a little complicated until you know what you're doing, and then it's very easy because it requires about 6 ingredients. But now I know how to put them out there. But one of the things is the texture was always wrong, and it was always like too much foam and the liquid at the bottom. But they got this stuff called xanthan powder. You ever heard of that?
I don't know. I have no clue what that is.
I had never heard of it, but people who cook a lot have heard of it because they use it in gravy and stuff. It's a thickener. And so you put like 1/8 of a teaspoon in your protein shake and put it in a blender. And instead of it being like milk, it's like a milkshake because its only job is to thicken. It doesn't add any flavor or anything. And so when you add that thickener to it, so now it's thicker like a Frappuccino would be, and you get the ingredients in there right, dude. I was so happy. I was like, I save $5 every day.
Wow. Yeah. A lot of experimentation with these types of things, which is fun. Maybe we'll use it today and see what else we can get in. in the air fryer. Who knows? We'll find out.
Shrimp is good. Scallops are good. Salmon is good. Steak is good.
Yeah, salmon.
Chicken is fantastic.
At some point, definitely going to try the salmon in there and see how that turns out. But we move forward from air fryer to, a reminder for everybody. I'm sure everybody figured this out. We had to cancel trivia, obviously, this week, which was a bummer, but I saved up the John Hughes movie trivia questions, and we'll be doing it next week. And this is what's going to be crazy, is I imagine next week is going to be just slammed full of people because next week.
Stuck at home.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's stuck this week, and then Wednesday and Thursday next week, it's supposed to be in the mid-60s. People are going to be like, oh, my God, let's get out. So it'll be Wednesday at Odd Muse Brewing in Farmers Branch at 7 o'clock. Thursday at False Idol Brewing in North Richland Hills at 7 o'clock. Each night of trivia with questions pulled from John Hughes movies that I've been watching, which is kind of, stuck at home and nothing to do. We've been watching a couple of John Hughes movies, and I've just been pulling trivia questions out of that. So should be good next week when we get back at it. Todd McShay, man. I think we all have, at least I do, I'm sure you do as well. I have my favorite draft guys that I like their work, and I pay more attention to what they do than anybody else.
Right.
And McShay might be my favorite one. He's pretty high up there.
How come?
I don't know what it is. I like his delivery. I like the way that he does it. He's not as over the top about it as Mel Kiper Jr. And I like his information. I also like Dan Brugler quite a bit at The Athletic now and his information, because he is so detailed and seems to just have an unbelievable amount of information that he can pull from what guys are looking at and what teams are actually truly thinking, and his evaluation. Those are probably my top two. But Todd McShay put out I think this is his mock draft 2.0. And I thought this was really interesting because I cannot recall this ever happening before. But McShay has 4 quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, 4 in the draft. Now, they did this, and he's got some trades in his mock draft, which I always think is interesting, because if the trade makes sense, then okay, cool, I'm with you. But a lot of the times it seems like, and we all know this, there's mock draft guys out there that are just doing trades almost like for the sake of doing trades.
Right. Make it realistic.
Right, where it just doesn't make any sense. And it's like, okay, well, why would they do that? I just wanted to have, we needed another trade in the first round or whatever it is. And you're like, okay, let's stop. Let's just stop with this. But McShay has, and I think at this point, it's fairly obvious that Jacksonville is taking Trevor Lawrence, and everybody is talking about how really the draft begins with the 2nd overall pick.
Right.
Because are the Jets going to be able to trade Sam Darnold? Is there a market for Sam Darnold? If they do that, where would they go? So McShay has Zach Wilson as the 2nd pick going to the Jets. Then he has Carolina trading up with Miami to take a quarterback, Trey Lance. And then he has the Falcons taking a quarterback at 4, Justin Fields. And those, again, are 2 interesting selections. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater definitely has to be in Carolina in 2021, but he doesn't have to be there after that. They've got an option there, so perhaps they could move on. Justin Fields, Matt Ryan still has a couple of years left on his contract. Would that be a Matt Stafford-like trade scenario somewhere right there with the top 4? I don't know.
Well, I think if you look at the contracts, Matt Ryan's got to be there for at least another year.
Right.
For it to make sense, which is good if you can ever adhere to it, and if they're good enough, because then Justin Fields or whoever they get could actually sit for a year and learn it. Now, I got to tell you, man, what's his name? Trey Lance? Trey Love?
Yeah. Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. He scares the hell out of me. Because unlike Carson Wentz, who I think was a 2 or 3 year starter, that dude has started 1 year, man, at the lower level of competition. And I know he's got all these great skills, but it's not even like he played for a passing team. They're a running team. I mean, he threw the ball like 19 times a game.
Right.
And it was a pretty basic passing offense. And so his learning curve is going to be extremely high. I mean, he's just scared the hell out of me, man. I mean, now, maybe you get Josh Allen, but maybe you don't.
Yeah.
I think he's got to go to a team like Buffalo who could actually put Josh Allen in there for 3 years and let him learn to play without without the expectations being so great. So what does that always go back to, bro? It matters who drafts you.
Exactly, which is why if we see this play out the way McShay has in his mock, and it's quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, 4, then obviously, as we know, most likely 2 of them are going to be colossal busts that will reset the franchises back. You would have to guess in that scenario, and look, Robert Salah seems like a great dude, but if I had to guess who was going to screw it up, I would pick the Jets to screw up the pick. And then, Carolina, I always think it's interesting when teams, so you're not trading up for the first or second pick, so you're really not getting who you truly have ranked the highest. You're trading up because you want to make sure you don't miss out on one of the 4 guys.
Right.
And really, when teams tend to do it that way, then they end up screwing up that. I mean, look at Christian Ponder, with Minnesota years ago as an example. It's a really interesting early part of the draft. We haven't seen quarterbacks like this. I mean, let's go back to 99, 1, 2, 3, 4, when it was Tim Couch, Donovan McNabb, Akili Smith. 2 of them were colossal busts. Donovan McNabb had a solid career, and then the other 2 quarterbacks in that class went 11 and 12 with Dante Culpepper and I think it was Cade McNown at the time. Culpepper was all right for a while, but you kind of get the idea of what we're talking about. The interesting thing to me with McShay's mock here is that Miami, there's a couple of things. Miami's able to trade down from 3 to 8. Carolina trades up for the quarterback, and Miami still gets an Alabama wide receiver in Jalen Waddle to team with Tua that he's familiar with and has chemistry with. And the fact that in his mock, there are 5 quarterbacks going in the top 12, and that the Dallas Cowboys at 10 could sit at 10 because McShay has 8 offensive players going as the first 8 picks before Denver at 9 takes a defensive player. If it plays out like this, that means the Cowboys, whoever they have as the number 2 rated defensive player on their board, they can take with the 10th overall pick.
I would think that would be one of the cornerbacks.
Or maybe it's even the number 1 rated defensive player.
They'll tell us that it is.
Right? Yeah. And so this is where it is because McShay has the 2 cornerbacks, Patrick Surtain of Alabama going 9 to Denver, which means the Cowboys make the move for Caleb Farley, the kid out of Virginia Tech. I mean, look, either one of these guys would be fantastic. They need that type of help, but if it shapes out like this, it's extremely promising that the Cowboys truly are going to be able to get, and I know this isn't a Chase Young or a Bosa draft, but whoever they have ranked the highest, there's a really good chance the Cowboys will somehow get them while sitting at 10 defensively.
No, I mean, I think it looks like on paper it's going to fall on them. The question to me is there's always some surprise in the draft.
Right.
And somebody falls, whether it's a CeeDee Lamb or whether it's somebody else. And the question is always, how do you pull that trigger when that guy falls to you? Like CeeDee Lamb, they pulled the trigger. He's better than the defensive guys on the board. But what if Sewell falls to you at 10 and the cornerback is still there? You probably take the cornerback, but you'd have to give it a lot of thought if he's a generational, supposed to be talent.
Yeah, this is where this gets interesting to me as well with what the Cowboys are doing because, and again, if you're trying to win now and you believe your window is now, and if they can't get something worked out long-term with Dak, you have 2 options. You're either going all in on this year and you take whoever it is you think that helps you win right now because Dak's gone, and you have to be realistic about that. Like if you don't think, and that's part of the thing that's weird about this is because they won't have, I mean, they could work out a long-term contract with Dak after the draft, but they know they're not stupid, or maybe they are.
Right. No, they're not.
But they have to realistically, they have to tell themselves, are we going to get a deal done with Dak? Are we going to bend and acquiesce to what he wants or not? And if the answer is no, then you either have a 1-year window here where the division's probably going to be down again next year, and maybe you take the best cornerback you can get to improve the secondary, hope Dak stays healthy, and you roll the dice and see what you can do in 1 year. Or you have the option of saying, well, we know for a fact Dak's going to be a free agent next year. He won't be here. We like Mac Jones, or we like Penei Sewell or somebody like that who happens to be there, or Kyle Pitts, because we're doing this about the future and we'll just see what happens this year.
Yeah, I think whatever you take, I think you take this last year and roll the dice with Dak. If you get I think you go into this going, and I'm like you, they'll know based on the negotiation numbers that get tossed back or that they put out there.
Yeah.
Whether it's hopeful that you can get a long-term deal done. But I think you go all in this year, and whatever it takes, because if Dak leaves after next year, you're probably not going to be drafting high enough to get that guy initially. And so I think you would then take what's the word I'm looking for? You would take an Indianapolis Colts approach, which is who's next year's Phillip Rivers?
Right.
Some guy like that. Okay, come be our quarterback for a year while we figure out what we're going to do.
Maybe it's Matt Ryan.
Maybe it's Matt. See, that's what I'm talking about. Some guy like that. Yeah. Because you know the thing about the Cowboys is it's not in Jerry's thought process to dip low and rebuild. Now they have awful years, 4-12, 5-11. Those are not done on purpose. Where we're rebuilding. We're no. Their goal is always to compete, and so I don't think they'd want to strip it down to get that first or second pick in the draft. They would go find a Matt Ryan or somebody else like that to be their quarterback for a year, and then keep it moving, because they'll sell them on. Look at all the weapons we got. Maybe it's Derek Carr. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. There's a variety of guys with this influx of youth. I mean, we've talked about this before. Generally, the quality of young quarterbacking that's in the league right now is really, really good. But at the same time, like Pittsburgh's a great example of this. We are seeing quarterbacks playing longer than they ever have before, which creates weird situations for franchises. Phillip Rivers is a great example of this, where, okay, we kind of are ready to move on because you're not what you once were. You're still good.
Right.
But you're not what you once were, and we're not really wanting to pay you anymore because we need to move forward, because it's not just about next year. Like, we've got a dude we think we can roll with for the next 5 years, and it's not you because you're too old now. And so that's these interesting moves and movement. Plus, if we're learning anything, there's no contract that you can't trade apparently anymore.
No. They're all on the table, bro.
Which didn't used to be that way in the NFL, but you see Stafford, you see Goff, you see Wentz, you see all these deals being made, maybe Watson, and all of a sudden it really opens up this whole new idea of what is possible with quarterbacks across the league as far as we don't want you, we want somebody else. I mean, the Rams are a phenomenal example of this. The dude took them to a Super Bowl, but they didn't think he was the dude. They invested a ton of capital to be able to trade up to get Goff, paid him a ton of money, and then, of course, had to attach picks to get rid of them, but they didn't care about any of that. And so if the Rams are willing to do it, there's other teams out there. I don't know what the Cowboys are, but it's going to be really interesting, the future of what we once thought were these anchored contracts where you're just stuck with that franchise, and obviously that's not the case anymore.
Nah, bro. Everything's wide open.
Hopefully it starts to warm up. It's supposed to get above freezing for the first time on Friday afternoon sometime. It'll be 140 hours straight of below freezing temperatures, which oddly enough is only the 5th longest streak ever in DFW. I thought that was crazy. It's like, wow, really? But if it warms up and you get a chance this weekend, make your way out to Rockwall and grab the Jam Session 6-pack. It is a wonderful way to enjoy the weekend. 6 beers, 3 that I selected, 3 that Jacques selected, all for $16.99. Now, Beer Geeks has been closed along with a lot of other places, of course, because of the weather and the roads, and it's hectic out there. But when they get opened up again, should be this weekend, get out and support them, man. Anytime a local family-owned business has to close shop for a few days and they weren't expecting it, as everybody knows, that does not help. So get out, support Beer Geeks. Jason and Deidre, the husband and wife team that own it, a phenomenal place in Rockwall, right off the square. Everything available in singles. Buy a Jam Session 6-pack. Enjoy it. I'll say this. It's unfortunate because with the road situation and the weather, obviously, Beer Geeks wasn't open. Even if they were, you and I wouldn't have been able to make it out there to get beer this week.
No.
So for the second straight week, sadly, we do not have a just the sip for you. But I did drink some beer this week.
Shocking.
And it's funny because, man, there are times where I really just want to try like new beers and stuff I've never had before.
Right.
But there are places that shall remain nameless. There's a place when we had to go to Mark's house to stay with him. There is a place like a half mile from where he lives, maybe less than that, maybe a quarter mile, that has a really good beer selection. But they are way overpriced, man. I mean, to the point where there were a couple of things that I was like, okay, they do have this. I was like, man, that's just... I'm
not going to do it.
I'll wait until the roads are better and I can get somewhere else. But I will say there's a couple that I've really enjoyed over the years that I'm one of those people that I have certain go-tos at a variety of places that don't necessarily have expansive craft lists. One of those, and it's still good. It's still such a quality. Is it the best IPA I've ever had in my life? No. Are there better IPAs out there? Yes. But it is such just a quality, easy drinking, phenomenal representation of what the West Coast style IPA is. And that is just Stone IPA from Stone Brewing out there in Escondido, out there close to San Diego. And I bought a 6-pack of that. And I think I drank 5 one night while we were hanging out playing cards.
Wow. Playing cards.
Well, they were playing cards. And we played this game called Mexican Train, which is like some domino game that was actually a lot of fun. That ended up being a lot of fun. So, drinking some beer. And then the other one, and I remember the first time I had this beer, it blew my mind. And once they expanded and sold out and sold the Canarchy, and it's changed a little bit. But that, of course, Tampa, which this is a real bummer about not being able to get to that area this year.
Yeah.
Tampa St. Pete has a phenomenal craft brew scene. And
really?
Yes, they have a couple of probably the best breweries in the country. One of them is called Cigar City Brewing, which I went to about 5 years ago before they sold out. And it was like walking into beer Mecca. They had 22 of their own beers on tap. It was phenomenal, all of them. And it used to be they only distributed like right in that little area. And now they distribute, you can get them all across the country. But their High Ally IPA is such a phenomenal... Like it has citrus juice kick to it, but it also has a piney kick to it as well.
Right.
Man, first time I had that beer, I was like, holy hell, this is awesome. And it does not have that same reaction to me anymore. But I did get a 6-pack of that as well, because again, that's one of those beers that I know I like this beer and I can drink multiples of them.
I feel you on that. Now, here's the $64,000 question. Many of you know I have another business called the JJT Media Group. Well, we've been hired to go back down to Jackson and do a big piece on Deion Sanders.
Nice.
What's the brewery scene in Jackson?
Non-existent. I think I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
I know you're serious because you would know. That's why I asked.
There may be, at one point, there were 2 breweries in Jackson. I don't know if there's still 2. There may just be 1 now. And this is a couple of years ago because, my lady friend's dad lives in Oxford, Mississippi. So we've been to Mississippi at least once a year for the last few years. And there was something like 5 or 7 breweries in the entire state of Mississippi.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it is. They have really antiquated beer laws that make it difficult for craft beer to have success. And so there's just not a lot of local craft breweries in Mississippi. It's hard to find, oddly enough, in downtown Oxford, maybe because it's a college town, there's this really cool growler bar that has beers from all over the place. Probably the most popular brewery in all of Mississippi is a place called Southern Magnolia, which is down in Kiln, which I think is like that city by Hattiesburg where Brett Favre lives.
I believe that is exactly what it is.
I mean, out in the middle of nowhere. And that's like the brewery in Mississippi that's worth a crap.
Well, I won't be visiting there.
I mean, think about that. There was a place called Jackson Beer Company or Star Brewery in Jackson, but I'd have to look and see if they're still opening. I mean, if they're still open now.
I looked up and there were 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But they were serving food at a couple of them, which always makes me suspicious. I couldn't find websites for them.
Yeah, see that. Yeah, one of the things about, and there's different beer laws in different places, but like Arkansas is that way where you have to serve beer. I mean, you have to serve food of some sort.
Right.
And so, like, they're really good. Oddly enough, there are a couple of really good craft breweries in the Little Rock area, but they also have kitchens because you have to essentially be what in Texas we would call it a brew pub.
Right. They got what is this called?
Lucky Town. Lucky Town Brewery was the one I was thinking of. And then Lazy Magnolia, not Southern Magnolia, Lazy Magnolia.
See, they got the Mississippi Cold Drip Coffee and Tea Company.
Yeah, whatever that
sound
is.
like a brewery. They got Bicentennial Beer Company. And they got Cathead Distillery.
Yeah, Cathead does vodka.
All right. So
Yeah,
I guess
so-
that's why it's a distillery.
I mean, there's hardly any, man. I mean, you've got, I mean, like hardly anything at all.
And look at this story I just saw. Man.
Oh, Lucky Town closed. Okay, that's what I was thinking of.
Lucky Town, only beer brewery in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Closing.
Yeah, so they don't have any breweries, actual craft breweries in Jackson right now.
Yeah.
That is amazing because, you know, look, Jackson's not a big city, but it's the capital of the state. It's Jackson, Mississippi.
The tap room will remain open until March 9th. So, I've still got time to go to swing through, see what they got on tap.
Maybe you can make it and see what it's like. That's crazy, man. But yeah, it's one of those things with the craft beer world and, you know, kind of having these different opportunities to, and that was one thing going to these different cities whenever we visit. Like every time we go see her mom and that side of her family in Little Rock, we always hit a couple of breweries. And if you're ever in Little Rock, Lost 40 is fantastic. I mean, they would be competitive in Dallas. And then there's a couple of others. There used to be one called Rebel Kettle, which made really good beer, but they had to close down. There's Diamond Bear now. I'm trying to think what else is over there. Flyway has a really good blueberry wheat beer. But, you know, look, reality of it is in some of these cities like this where the craft beer scene is not as vibrant and the craft beer palate is not as critical, I guess. Not as refined, I should say.
That's a better word.
Yeah, you know, like Dallas was like that for a while, and we've gotten to the point now where we've talked about this, where really the breweries that aren't putting out high quality product, if you're not supported by your immediate local community, you just can't survive in this area anymore. And there are some breweries that I have been to whose beer is not any good, but you know what? In the little small area that they are operating out of, people love going to it. And really, that's all that matters. I mean, if you've got an audience and people enjoy what you do and then you can live off of that tiny little community, then who cares?
There you go.
Enjoy it. So we will have a Just a Sip for you next week. We will have some new beers that we will roll through. I actually have a beer. I'm excited to try this. I think, it's an Ingenious beer from down in the Houston area. And it is a King Cake Stout that we bought because we thought we were going to open it on Mardi Gras, which was Tuesday, but we didn't.
What kind of stout?
King cake. So it's brewed with actual king cakes.
Okay, I feel dumb. What is king cake?
Oh, king cake for Mardi Gras. It's that like, usually it's purple, yellow, and green frosting on it, and then they put the little baby in it, and you got to eat it, and whoever gets the baby has good luck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you didn't know about that?
Okay, see, I feel really badly now because, number one, I didn't know. And it's no shame that I don't know some ritual about Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But my workout partner that I work out with 6 days a week, except when we're iced in, he's from New Orleans. And I have about 4 or 5 friends that I see regularly from New Orleans. And they would be ashamed that I didn't know what king cake was.
Yeah, you know, that's okay. I mean, some people are more into Mardi Gras than others. I mean, I've never actually been to New Orleans Mardi Gras. I've been to Mardi Gras in Galveston before, oddly enough, and they have a huge celebration down there.
Now, let me ask you this about New Orleans.
Yeah.
Did you know that people in New Orleans have a real New Orleans accent? I'm not talking about like a Southern accent. I'm talking about like a...
Like, are you talking about Cajun?
No.
Okay.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's more Caribbean. Not Cajun, but... And I say this because my guy was at the gym. We're working out, and he's a chiropractor. And he does a lot of advertising, so sometimes people will come up and say, hey, are you the chiropractor? You've been all over my Facebook feed. So these women, we were talking, and these women stopped by us, and one of them said, are you from New Orleans? And he said, yeah. And then she started talking about this part. It sounds like you from this part. He goes, yeah, I am.
Huh.
And I started tripping, man. But I thought it was just me, but nah, if he's definitely got an accent, and he grew up in New Orleans, and it's a deep New Orleans accent, man.
That is interesting, yeah, because the only one that I know that is one, and it's, God, I mean, when you get across like a real Cajun, like a backwoods Cajun dude, and he's like, man.
Dude, they sound like Ed Ogeron for real.
They do, man. That's actually, yeah.
One of my friends, when I first got a house in Dallas, one of my neighbors was a true Cajun who grew up in Cajun territory, and it just figured out how to temper his accent so that he could get a job and function. But when he was being funny, man, he would dip back into his roots, and he would have me rolling with his accent going, because he would be saying, "I'm just imitating my dad."
Yeah,
because that's where his dad grew up, and his dad still lives. And dude, it was wild.
It is. I mean, it is. That area accent is really crazy. But I don't know. I'd have to hear it to know if I've heard it. I mean, I've been to New Orleans several times, so I would imagine I've heard somebody that speaks with that type of an accent. I don't know, but New Orleans has a good beer scene. There's a couple of decent breweries down in New Orleans.
Is that right?
Yeah, in case you were wondering. But I guess that'll wrap it up for us here on this fantastic podcast. Glad to have everybody with us. Thanks so much for supporting what we do. Keep it coming. Keep listening, telling your friends about all of that, and keep subscribing. Well, I guess you're already subscribed. I guess tell people to subscribe so that they'll keep downloading it. You can find us on our Instagram at Jam Session Cast. Don't forget about Twitter at McMattRadio at JJT_journalist. Thanks to Purple Elephant Music for all the music you hear at the end and beginning of each episode. He is the radio and TV star, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor, and I'm just a guy, Matt McLaren. We'll catch you next time right here on the Jam Session Podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts.